has done worse than Buhari in a number of ways. But Buhari started it. Buhari gave it. And we warned him. We said, if you start this, those who are going to come after will take a cue, can take that cue and do worse than what you have done. And that's going to be detrimental to the country. So, but in all these things that have happened, I think the real blame is going to be on the edge.
Good day, good day, good day. Yes, before I always say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but today, I'll just say good day, like they say in Australia, because it suffices. I know some people are about to sleep. My friends in Bangalore are 12 hours ahead of me. Australia and New Zealand are going to sleep. In Africa, it's a completely different time and so on and so forth. So let's just say good day. That'll suffice to the people in the 7 continents of the world: Antarctica, Australia, Africa, Asia, North America, South America, and Europe. Good day. Welcome to State of the Nation, Nigeria. Yes, some people tell me, why Nigeria all the time? The answer is very simple. Nigeria is the largest concentration of Black people on the planet. 1 out of every 4 sub-Saharan African is a Nigerian. 1 out of every 6 Black person in the whole world, including the United States, is a Nigerian. Nigeria, is struggling with a lot of things, and so we cannot allow it struggle. We just have to talk about it. A lot of us compare Nigeria to India. India, the most populous democracy, a Commonwealth country like Nigeria. They run free and fair election, e-transfer, over 1 billion people, like I said, and results are gotten in very short a time. That's why today we really still have to talk about the imperative of having free and fair election in Nigeria, what needs to be done, where mistakes have been made, where we're still going around in circle. My friend would call it circumnavigating. So we need to talk to people that are true to power, people that say it the way it is, people that are very honest. And today, I don't know any other person than somebody that is an elder statesman right now. That's Mr. Usman Bugaje is our guest today. Welcome, sir, to State of the Nation on the Atlanta Discourse channel.
It's a great pleasure, Adi.
As you know, he's a public intellectual. He's also, he's an academic. Some will even call him an activist, and he's been a former member of the House of Reps. So he's all encompassing. He's highly cerebral, and he says it the way it is. Even to his friends, even to his brothers. If you follow his track record, he says it the way it is all the time. So, sir, my first question to you is that, are you happy with the state of the nation, Nigeria, as it is? If yes, why? If no, why?
I'm not happy.
Okay. Oh, you're not.
To say it straight to the point, but I don't think outside the people who are fleecing Nigeria and destroying the country, many people, millions of Nigerians are not happy. And you see it expressed in different ways and forms. You look at the social media, you see how young people are basically angry, and rightly so, because it's their future that is being destroyed. So Nigeria, in the last 25 years, since we got out of the military, there has been a lot of, if you like, expectations that democracy was going to produce the kind of vision of society, a kind of strong Nigeria leading the whole of African continent. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had through democracy in the last 25 years has not been able to deliver 10% of that expectation. If anything, it has literally destroyed the country in 3 particular sectors. One, poverty has nearly tripled in these last 25 years. insecurity has escalated to level unprecedented and inconceivable. And then decay of institutions. There is hardly any institution that functions in Nigeria today, including the judiciary, which is very, very important. And then over and above this, we have decay of infrastructure. Look at electricity, which is key to industrialization, which is key to production. And remember, no country can be wealthy through the sale of if you like, extractive products of extractive industries. You can only be wealthy through production. And once you don't have electricity, then you cannot have production. And look at the money that has been spent. Estimated now about 60, some would say even 100 billion, and there is nothing to show for it. And nobody has actually gone to prison, in all these. People are still, the criminals are still working scot-free. And then, which I think is the worst, you don't have jobs for young people. This frustration of lack of job is what, in a way, has given room for recruitment into Boko Haram, recruitment into rural banditry, recruitment into all the clashes, that we're having. And it's sending a lot of people, a lot of young people, in the desert, to die, in the sea, to die. This is a tragedy. Nigeria today represents a huge tragedy in Africa. And it's all because of the leadership. We have a leadership that has no vision, a leadership that has no commitment to the state, a leadership that is so prebendal. They have personalized governance. They brought their family. And it's just terrible. And looking at other African countries that Nigeria was far ahead of, and look at other countries that were Nigeria's peer, like Brazil, like South Korea, like India itself, like so many other countries, you can see how far these people have left behind. Just one example is sufficient to underscore the point. Brazil and Nigeria in the early 70s set up a defense industry corporation, a kind of government corporation to produce the defense equipment that they require. Now, by the time we resume democracy in 1999, Brazil had started producing, they had already produced MiG fighter jets, and they were producing submarines. While Nigeria, the same defense industry, was actually producing furniture. Wow. Only recently, they tried to re-establish it as a defense industry. But up till now, a lot of the defense equipment are supposed to be coming from outside. You recall when we had to go to South Africa, literally begging, for arms to be able to deal with the Boko Haram. So this kind of a situation, when you examine it, you ask yourself, where exactly is the problem? So if you reduce all the problems to what they are, you come back to one single most important source, and that is leadership. The leadership recruitment process has no criteria for suitability. And because there is no criteria for leadership, neither in the constitution nor in the parties, and therefore you have a situation where anybody can come, and rightly so, the crooks have taken over. And the people that we have as leaders today are people with doubtful certificates, with criminal records, with records of incompetence. And this is why they cannot win a straightforward election. And therefore, they have to weaponize identity. So identity in Nigeria today has become weaponized. Those of us who are in our 70s, you go back to the 60s, you go back to the 90s. You had, a northerner, becoming a local government chairman, or the equivalent of that in Enugu. You have somebody from Borno becoming I think it was a Borno man, in Enugu. You have an Enugu person in Kano, you're contesting and winning elections. So when did we, recede to the point where now your identity has been weaponized? You cannot, and then elites are talking about tons of tribes. I mean, tribes, like I said, are, in a different occasion, are taking turns now to destroy their country. Everybody is saying it's my turn. It's time for the Igbo presidency. It's time for the Yoruba presidency. It's time for Northern presidency. It's time for this and this and that. And we're behaving like children, literally. Because, when has tribe become the measure, of leadership? Leadership is a matter of competence. So where are the competent people? If you do not prioritize knowledge, you are not going to go anywhere in the 21st century. In the 21st century, knowledge is the greatest capital.
Wow, thank you very much, sir. Now, before we start talking about elections, because from all you've said now, having electing the right leaders is one of the fundamental problems. Now, before we go into that, you were a part of Congress when democracy came back in 1999. You were in the House of Rep, a vital part. You were well known. You were vocal. Now, as it is today, we cannot blame the military anymore because they gave us the democracy. They left everything to us. Well over 20 years now. So if we wanted a new constitution, the politicians could have come up with one. And we can't also blame the colonialists, Britain, in this regard, because we are well over 60, 65 years old, so to say. So there's no reason for an over 60-year-old person to blame his or her parents, for example, if they're having shortfalls in their activities in life. So the question is, where did you think we got it wrong? Let's say from 1999 to today, we had a fantastic opportunity. Do you think, for example, the Obasanjo government could have done more? Because I know there are people that say maybe with benefit of hindsight, they should have allowed Obasanjo to have the third term, fourth term, and be a Kagame, some people think like that. But I'm asking you as an academic, as someone that was there at that time, and as an elder statesman, where do you think we got it wrong? Something must have gone missing along the line. Over to you, sir.
But probably that I served as a political advisor in the Obasanjo's government from 1990 to 2003.
Yes, sir.
And I must say that in the first term of Obasanjo, 1990 to 2003, he did wonderful things. He tried to change the trajectory of the country. He tried to work with a team. He prioritized competence. He brought in people who were very good from the diaspora, and he brought them in, like Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. He brought in Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. He brought in quite a number of people from outside, and he was really ready. Unfortunately, after his first term, he fell victim of incompetent politicians who were whispering into his own ears, that he is the Messiah and that he needs to continue. Beside him, there is nobody else who can. And he fell into that trap. And then he started thinking in that direction. And that was what killed his second term. And his attempt to go for a third term made it even worse because it portrayed him as a selfish person. And that's how we started derailing. Now, Eradua, who came after him, was too sick to even be judged. Jonathan, who came after Eradua, looks to be a good man, but he didn't have the clout and the stamina to assert whatever vision he has. He became the nice man, listening to everybody and not wanting to offend anybody. And that was how we lost, that opportunity. When Buhari came, it became worse because Buhari was seen as somebody who was disciplined, who was straightforward, who was clean. That was the way he was presented by his promoters. Unfortunately, Buhari, may he rest in peace, turned out to be worse than any other president. And you recall, some of us, rejected or declined to take appointments. At least two of us I know in his government. And we kept pointing to the mistakes he's making, to the kind of thing. And it was him, in a way, that started weaponizing identity by bringing in too many people from the north, into certain sectors, like the defense sector, for example. Now, I can easily say that the current administration has done worse than Buhari in a number of ways. But Buhari started it. Buhari gave it. And we warned him. We said, if you start this thing, those who are going to come after will take a cue, can take that cue and do worse than what you have done. And that's going to be detrimental to the country. So, but in all these things that have happened, I think the real blame is going to be on the elite, myself and you, and a lot of us, because we fail to have a consensus as to where we want our country to be. We fail to be able to come together as elite of the Nigerian state to see how we can salvage our country. We fail to stand up to the mess that people like Buhari, we're doing. Just like now, very few of us are actually willing to stand up to the mess that the current Bola Tinubu administration is doing. So it takes two to tango. If there is a corrupt regime that is prebendal and that is doing all the mess that is doing, in fact, selling our sovereignty at the moment, the elite must rise. And this idea that, I don't want to speak because government can arrest me. Okay, fine. Stay where you are so that you don't get arrested. But you can be certain of one thing. You'll be suffocated by the corruption that is taking place. You will not have electricity. You will not have water. You have to provide your electricity. You have to provide your water. You have to provide your school. I'm in a private school because the public schools have all gone down. You have to provide your own security. You have to provide everything. So where is the wisdom? In keeping away from the task that can save you, save your children, save your grandchildren. So I think the fault is largely for me, that of the elite. And the elite, if we all come together, we will have a number of ways. Look at what other countries have done. I mean, young people have tried the EndSARS, have tried the bad governance. And I hope they will not give up. Because if they do, it is basically their future that is being buried.
Right.
They will have no future at all. Because the way the current regime is destroying the country, I don't know if there will be anything left for young people to take. Buhari's regime sold our oil ahead of their own time, collected the money and pocketed it and distributed it. I'm glad some of them are being caught by the EFCC. And unfortunately, the opposition, I mean, the ADC, I've heard saying that people like this is because they are in opposition. For goodness sake, how can you fail to know that some of these people who are being investigated by the AFCC are the same people who actually run down the country? And now that they are going to the FCC, we should encourage the EFCC to do its job. So if you are going to now shelter your own criminals, right? What guarantee do you have when you get the chance to government that you will not become another criminal den where, nothing happens but stealing the resources of the country? So I think the problem, we can see where we started derailing, but I think the ultimate responsibility rests on the elite, who ought to see the sense in coming together, having a consensus of where this, our country is going to be in the next 25 years at least, and working towards it assiduously and relentlessly, because that's the only way we can do to how we can solve. Because remember, you made the point about the significance of Nigeria. In 25 years' time, Nigeria is going to be the is going to have a population well over 400 million. It will be the third largest country in the
Yes,
world
in the
after
world, yeah, that's
China.
true. Yeah.
Now, what we should be thinking in the next 25, from now, for the next 25 years, is how are we going to feed the population? How are we going to provide education for this population? How are we going to provide the health care? How do we provide the infrastructure? How do we provide and create jobs for this large number of people? Look at China. This is exactly what it did. And in the last 25 years, China has so transformed and now is competing with the United States. And you can easily see in certain sectors, China is leading the globe. Now, because their leadership, they created a leadership based on meritocracy. You have to prove your worth to be able to be given responsibility. There are so many ethnic groups. Many people don't know that there are hundreds of ethnic groups in China, but nobody speaks about ethnicity. In fact, when you see a Chinese professor, you hardly find the title professor on him. You just find his names in Jun Tin, and that's it. But he delivers, right? But look at us here, empty professors, just creating titles over titles and talking about our tribes, and for goodness sake, where has that taken us to? So the elites have to come back to their senses and start coalescing, getting together to see how they can salvage their country. Otherwise, these rogue politicians, these criminals that have taken over politics, are going to destroy this country, destroy the elite, and destroy the aspirations of our youth.
Yeah. Okay. So moving into electoral related matters now. Yeah. Based on what you said, for example, there are bad politicians in the ADC opposition. There are bad politicians in APC. There are bad politicians. So they're all elites and they're all guilty as charged. Nobody is exonerated. That's one. Then secondly, when you talk about the academics, the professors, they are the ones that organize elections also. They are the returning officers, state returning officers, and in so many cases. So they also help the politicians to rig the election. Unfortunately, they are the ASU that come back later to ask for pay rise when they've already compromised themselves. So all this leads to where I'm going now. We need to elect the right people, the right leaders. There should be credibility and all that. Now, I watched your last press conference with Professor Otomi, Wale Okuni, and the others, and Prince Adebayo, where you emphasize a lot on why the Nigerian election has to be free and fair. And a lot was said that day. So now the Electoral Act has been signed, albeit passed against the wish of so many people. Everybody wanted e-transfer, whatever that means, real time. I understand what Nigerians want, but it doesn't look like that is what has been passed. So foundationally, maybe there's a lacuna there. So people are still worried the police is a problem, the judiciary is a problem, everything is a problem. So now, how do we move forward from here to address that problem you have said? We need to elect the right leaders, we need quality leadership, we need thinking leaders. Now, we have a process to do that in 2027. It doesn't look like that will be fair, at least based on what people are saying generally. So how do we move on from there, sir? What's next?
Okay. I don't alone claim to have all the answers.
Absolutely.
It's something that needs to be done collectively.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
I'm happy with the movement of credible elections. There are a number of expertise. And I think since we are constantly meeting and we have not given up, far from it, we are standing up to the antics of these people. So I hope as we gather together to think through, we'll find a way to stop them. But as you know, I think it was Lenin who said about elections that the masses do the voting, but it is the elite who do the counting. Now, it's the counting that is really important. And this is why we are focusing on the mandatory electronic transmission. Because that's the only way.
It reduces the human influence.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And the fact that the Senate leadership, in connivance with the executive arm of government and even the leadership of the House of Reps, are making sure that they do not allow a mandatory transmission, is that itself is telling you very clearly, in no uncertain terms, that these people are not preparing for election, they are preparing for rigging. And because I don't know, they seem to be so stupid as to, I mean, look at the speed with which the president passed the bill. I don't think he has, the process is that when a bill comes from the National Assembly, even if it was a state executive bill, meaning sponsored, you need your attorney general to go through with you to ensure that the law is the way, is the kind of thing you are going to implement, because the implementation of the law is on the executive arm of government. But that was not done. The man just rushed. You couldn't have read it. It was less than 24 hours. And yet he was there signing it. And this group of criminals were around him, supporting him, cheering him. And they don't seem to understand that people have seen through their character. One, and this is not the first time they did that. You remember one of the first things that this government did was the transfer of nearly 15 trillion to a company of your own very friend, the Chagoris, where your own son is said to be a director without due process. I mean, it tells people are not stupid. What you are telling people that you are a thief. How can you do this? And we have raised our voice against this, and nothing happened. No, not even an apology. We were simply ignored. And precisely because you have no answer. They have no answer to give. And then they came with the tax law. There was a lot of controversy about the tax. And you remember the Alpha Beta in Lagos, the experience is bitter. And so with that memory, people are making sure that this is not a repeat of the Alpha Beta in Lagos. And yet, even after all the noise, understanding up to the antics of the laws and the modifications, that they went ahead to enact or sign a law which has no relationship with what the National Assembly has done. Basically, what they have wanted to. This is the greatest fraud that has ever been done in recent independent Nigeria, and it's an impeachable offense. And they are putting a straight face, just like thieves do when they are caught stealing. You know, you can't do this. If you have a sense of shame, honestly, you resign. And then now comes this law. We're not even sure. And as we are reading the law, we are seeing a lot of tampering. For example, the time that is supposed to be given to INEC to prepare the funding and everything is 1 year in the 2022 Electoral Act. Now they've reduced it to 6 months. What does that mean? It means that INEC will not even be sufficiently funded. And the funding can be, and that proviso, that ambiguity they introduce is clearly deliberate. Yeah. And it is amazing. An expert who was part of INEC, I think he was heading the INEC, either legal department or operational department, was on channels yesterday saying that 8 years ago, this debate of whether we have the capacity or not has been solved. At that time, there was only 3G and 4G. Now we have 5G.
5G, yeah.
Right. So, and at that time, they had 93% coverage. This is by the government's own institution that that supervises the IT infrastructure. They gave assurance, double sure that 93% coverage is available in Nigeria. This was 8 years ago. And how can we even doubt the capacity while bandits in the bush are doing TikToks and communicating and insulting government? We see all these clips coming from the bush. And now you are telling me that, in the event of, unless you are now planning to shut down the system itself, and then you now take that as an alibi now to do a manual transfer in which you are sure to be able to throw tear gas and change the results and declare yourself president. I mean, this is outrageous, Adi. I cannot imagine that people with any sense of shame will be doing this kind of thing that these people are doing. And let them know. I hope they will listen to what we are saying here.
They do.
Let them know that people are looking at you naked. You have the clothes you are wearing are see-through. People are seeing you for the thieves you are. People are seeing you for the criminals you are. So this leadership of the National Assembly, the leadership of the executive arm of government are all conniving to cheat. I mean, what will your children tell you? Honestly, how would they see you? They see their parents cheating. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is despicable, honestly. I mean, I cannot imagine that these people will have I mean, it's so shameless. They will now come and pretend that they are good people. They want to see good things in Nigeria, talking about budget. We have all seen through you now. We know that you are out to cheat. And all this struggle. See how what they did. I mean, people came out of the National Assembly, their own colleagues, saying only APC, only APC. Is there a better evidence that you are thieves? That your own colleagues who sit with you in the same parliament are out there, not just inside the chamber, coming out and telling the world, because people were taking pictures, videoing, and they are calling you only. So if I tell you you are only, I'm only repeating. I'm only repeating what your colleagues are saying.
Oh,
honestly, my evidence is that your own colleagues are calling you only. I think they should bury their face in shame if they have ever any shame.